If you can imagine a couple people trying to tell the same story, it's pretty much what we have in the Gospels. Remember last weekend we left off with the Gospel of Mark, and then now we switched to the Gospel of John. So it's as if you have Mark and John standing there telling a story, and then John picks up where Mark kind of leaves off. So Mark was telling us last week and the week before about how Jesus was exercising his saving power, making the kingdom of God a demonstration of that reality through the healings, and he was teaching the people many things is where we left off, and then John kind of picks up. So then it's like you're talking to two people, and then John picks up. So now today and the next 4 Sundays, we are going to be focused on John, but they're like John is like continuing with the story that Mark was telling. So this is why we keep all 4 gospel accounts, or one of the reasons that we keep all 4 gospel accounts. But it's just like picking up from where someone left off. So the Gospel of John picks up today right where Mark left off last week. They both have stories about the feeding of the multitudes with very little bread and fish. Here we focus on John because you start to get the theological interpretation behind it. So when we look at the reason why the crowd is following Jesus, the crowd is following Jesus because they saw the signs that he was performing on the sick. So John looks at it differently, and he says, yeah, but wait, Mark. So it's kind of like saying, hey, wait, Mark. And then we pick up on this, but every time Jesus heals, it points to God. So there's a ritual meaning behind every time he heals. So Mark is focused on, if you start going with the Gospel of Mark in the first chapter, he starts saying, well, the first thing he did is he called the disciples, then he cast out a demon in the synagogue, and then they keep going, with what happened with the healing of Peter's mother-in-law. And then and John picks up with this part where Mark was going to say the same thing about feeding the multitude, but John picks up on the fact that this is a sign thing or a ritualistic miracle healing, so that the healings that Jesus does, they are ritualistic, meaning that they point to God. The clearest example I could give you that's very easy is that if you were walking around or driving around someday and you go and you see a sign with an arrow that says free money, okay, you'd follow it, right? Probably. Then it has another sign that says free money, arrow, and you follow it, right? Then you have another sign that says free money and another arrow, right? You'd probably keep following it for a while, right? All right, so this is similar to that, is like the signs that Jesus is performing on the sick are like these signs that point to God, that say something like, desires satisfied, life fulfilled, happiness. God is present here. And so then this is very, very easily understood in that sense that the signs that he's performing on the sick, the crowd is starting to catch on that this is pointing to God, that there's more than just a healing taking place. But the fact that if you heal a blind person, then what's the cure for blindness? Well, seeing. But then seeing also entails understanding. It also entails faith. It also understands much more than just the healing of someone who is blind. And so every time Jesus heals, then there's this ritualistic meaning behind it. That's what's indicated in the Greek text when you see this sentence, and you look at the sentence in Greek, is because of the signs that he was performing on the sick is why the crowd was following him. This is what is encapsulated, if you will, in that sentence. There's an indication in the Greek that these are pointing to God, that there's something else. That's why we moved to John, because these first 15 verses of John chapter 6, there's this theological interpretation from the viewpoint of John. And John and Mark, they all see the same things. They're all walking along with Jesus. They all see the same things. They all have the same experiences, but they tell the story differently. Again, which is another reason we have different gospel accounts. But here, this first 15 verses sets us up for understanding desire. Okay, and this is what's going on, is that people are so excited by the signs that they are seeing that they are ignoring their physical needs. And so what Jesus is going to do, he knew what he was going to do. He was going to perform another sign for them, the sign of the fishes and loaves. All right, loaves and fishes. So then he knew he was going to do this. So he performs another sign for the people. And the simple point there is that the people are so excited about the signs, they forget about this desire. And we too forget about this desire that we have for God. God has implanted in us a desire for him. And so we are desiring fulfillment, but we don't necessarily know where to find it. Well, Jesus is the only place to find it. And so then we look at this understanding about how Jesus comes to satisfy our hearts. We can only find our fulfillment of being human and our happiness in Jesus. There are many things we try to fill our hearts with in the world. Okay, many, many things. Drugs, alcohol, pleasure, ambitious or risky career moves, a new house, a new car, exotic vacations, maybe a new spouse, perhaps. Okay, all kinds of things we do in the world try to make ourselves happy. Okay, Jesus is the only one that satisfies us, and that's why we have to keep going back to him. So the first 15 chapters set us up for the first 15 verses rather, set us up for this understanding of our desire, to know who it is we desire and why we desire him, and to live in that truth so that we can be fulfilled.